It's quite obvious to me now, New World has insane potential and could become one of the best MMOs on the market. Now I'm saying the word potential because I'm not saying that the game is by any means perfect right now, obviously it isn't. But to me, the Brimstone Sands update really shows what AGS can do with New World going forward, and I truly believe that the future is bright. Before we jump in though, I just want to give another big shout out to my YouTube members. Thank you so much to you guys. If you want to support the channel and you want to see more content from me, that's the best way to go about things. So let's start at the beginning with the game's launch. New World started off with nearly 1 million people all playing at once, and initially the future looked bright. Now obviously out of those 1 million people, not everybody was going to stick around. The vast majority were obviously going to leave, and they did. However, I do think that the game's issues that it launched with, many of which were quite serious in terms of gaming, like exploits, dupes, and the end game loop being a bit weak, amongst others, I believe all of those basically caused New World to lose more players than it otherwise would have at a faster rate. But since then, and I've said this quite a few times now, AGS have fought back. Amazon have put their money where their mouth is and supported this game through thick and thin. And they've resolved a lot of those big issues. Be that expeditions being free to enter, expertise being visible, PvE mutations, PvP arenas, and so on and so forth, okay? I'm not listing everything here, but they've done a lot to make this game good. Like, if I was putting numbers on things, I'd say that maybe the game launched at like a 5 out of 10, and I'd say that the Brimstone Sands update turns it into maybe like a 7 or 8 out of 10. There's some things that are truly amazing in the game, and there's some things that are a little bit lackluster. And that's okay, because Amazon have shown a willingness and a desire to change things and correct things for the players. They've been listening to our feedback, and they've been acting upon that feedback. Maybe not at lightning pace, but they have slowly but surely changed this game. Progress is progress. And that leads us to Brimstone Sands, the latest New World update. Brimstone Sands is honestly the first update that makes me look at New World and say, wow, this actually now feels like a proper MMO. I feel like it's the turning point from a survival game that was trying to be an MMO to an actual MMO. And Brimstone Sands, importantly, hints at all the future potential that we could get with this game if Amazon choose to continue to support it, which it looks like they are doing. It's important to note that it's not like this update went off flawlessly. There have been bugs, but it's important to also know that they did like 2 mini patches within the week of launch and corrected a lot of them. There are still some outstanding bugs which I'm sure are going to take a little bit longer to fix, but it's important to see that they are acting quickly when they do this kind of stuff. And none of the issues were like really bad. I'm talking bad like the bad old days, okay? But Brimstone Sands is simply beautiful. New World was always like a pretty game. The visuals were always quite stunning, but Brimstone really, to me, seems to take it up a bit of a notch. But looks can only get you so far. Content is king. And Brimstone is truly massive, but it's not just massive and with nothing in it, it's actually reasonably well packed. There's content in generally all corners of the map, even though the map is generally more round than a square, but you get the gist. But I would say that content-wise, it's not like Brimstone Sands offers anything incredibly new that we've never seen before. The new zone is something we've not had before, apart from at launch where every zone was new, but we had a new expedition, a new weapon, an extra ability, and some gems. All good additions, but what I think Brimstone really adds is potential. First, I'm not a person who's generally overly interested in stories and lore. I'm more interested in mechanics and stuff like that and fun. But Brimstone does add 2 different types of cutscenes. Well, technically we got 1 type of cutscene with Tempest, but here it's actually a lot more common. And I'm not actually going to show you either of the ones from Brimstone because I don't want to spoil Brimstone for anybody, okay? But we have in-game cinematics, which are basically just like the in-game graphics, but the camera will sort of move a little bit and you'll see some characters talking to each other or talking to you. I would say that they are perhaps maybe like a little bit basic, but they've implemented that system to do those, and I can only see that getting better over time. It's sort of a similar story with the cutscene cinematics, which at the moment are more like these 2D animations that sort of tell you the story in the background. They really are helping set the scene, I believe, and it gives you the general vibe of the story. I would love to see maybe like 3D cinematics at some point, but for now I'm quite happy with these. This, combined with the fact that when you read like the story notes in the open world, that the voice continues to read them even after you close it, just sort of helps set the scene and the vibe of the zone a lot better and gives you a bit of more of a complete picture when it comes to the story. Put simply, the story of New World is now easier to consume. I probably could not tell you anything that happened between levels 1 to 60 I just sort of rushed all through it, and it was difficult to consume because of the way it was presented. However, I am now vaguely understanding the story of Brimstone, and I'm enjoying it. If they keep progressing like that, then having the story in New World could really add to some insane potential. I really like the background of it being like Atlantis, essentially, that we've found and people are living eternal lives and stuff like that. I actually quite dig the story of it. I didn't dig how it was told, but that has got much better. Brimstone also hints at future content. We've all seen now the worm when you first enter it. That suggests that the raids, which to be fair we know are coming, but importantly there's also this thing called a solo trial, which is basically a 1v1 versus a boss in an instance. If Amazon start adding more and more stuff like that, which you can repeat, you can't really repeat that one, but if they add stuff that you can repeat, that could truly push the game forwards. The devs have said that they want to work on more solo content, and some people will be like, but it's an MMO. However, I do feel like solo content is actually sort of like the backbone of an MMO, and I truly think that's a good decision by AGS. Speaking of what's coming though, in the last dev update they obviously told us some very major things that are going to be coming to New World. I think that the raids that I just mentioned, that will make it feel like the PvE actually has a proper end game. For some reason I think a lot of people have this block that just 5-man dungeons are not truly end game. The end game is really the hardcore raids that are difficult. So whether or not you believe that or not, it doesn't really matter. The fact is we are going to get raids at some point, and I think that will help people's feelings about the game. To me, it always felt strange that New World didn't have raids, because I think generally MMOs typically do, but I think that's an indication of the struggle that Amazon went through turning this from a survival game into an actual MMO. Personally, very excited for those when they turn up. It's also quite likely that at some point soon we're going to get ranked PvP arenas. This may be what they talk about with leaderboards, I'm not 100% sure, but when we get ranked PvP arenas, I think that will fill a similar gap that raids will for the end game, but for the PvPers. It will then feel like the end game is complete. You'll have ranked PvP arenas and you'll have raids, and that will just feel better for everybody, I believe. Another thing is, we know that mounts are also coming, and if you combine mounts with some solo play potential, then I think we're looking again at something quite positive. We could be looking at some kind of collectible system that people actually want to go and farm. Yes, for sure, we need a transmog system. I've said since the very off, not having a transmog system and only having paid skins generally meant that if you wanted to look good, you had to pay. Now, there have been some event skins that aren't terrible, and there have been some free like Twitch drops and stuff like that, but just in general, transmog will make everybody feel a lot happier, I believe. And we know transmog is coming, we just have no idea when. But I do truly believe that mounts and mount skins, being able to solo farm stuff, and transmog will make the game way more enjoyable for the casual players, and I think that's again another positive that we can look forward to when it comes to New World. Now, I'm not saying the game is completely perfect right now. They do have some things that they obviously need to work on, in my opinion. I want to see them actually follow through with what they talked about when it comes to wars, so that the wars are not just entered by the super hardcore elites. I want to see that pool of players open up a little bit. That does appear to be happening, but let's see it. I think the gamble crafting is still pretty terrible, and I'd love to see that just be like flat out removed for the game. One obvious problem that we've seen with Brimstone is that the server architecture, or whatever you want to call it, the way that New World handles servers right now is a little bit flawed. We're seeing massive queues of like 15 hours, and that's absolutely just crazy in itself, right? The game itself though isn't really designed to allow that to be fixed very easily. I'm not capable of giving you the right suggestion here that would fix it. That's not my job. I don't really know the answer to that, okay? People want layers, but then layers will mean that you can probably easily get more materials than you should be. People want a mega server, but the game's not designed for it. How would wars work? Like, it's a tricky question, and I don't know the answer. I do truly believe that Cross-Realm will help, and we know they're working on Cross-Realm because they said so in a dev diary a few months back. Cross-Realm will just make it so that the quieter servers are actually playable. At the minute, if you're on a quiet server, then there's some content that you're basically excluded from, and that feels bad. Overall though, AGS may need to rethink how they're doing that. I've been talking about how I think you should be able to transfer from the main menu. Sort of felt like they're halfway there on that one. So yeah, let's hope that they do something that we don't end up with insane queues going forward. By the way, my actual predictions for New World is that we're going to get a bit of a hype when we get the roadmap and stuff like that, but I do think that come January, the player numbers and our interest in the game will die down a little bit. But that's okay. I wouldn't personally be alarmed by that. I don't think everybody should be looking at it in 3 months time being like, like, dead game. It's going to be relatively seasonal. Just keep that in mind. It's also worth pointing out that when we get fresh start servers on the 2nd of November, all bets are off. I have no idea how many people will play this game. It could be way more than I think, and it could not be as much as I think. So I'm not even going to make a sensible guess, but it's going to be interesting no matter what. But in general, I think the future of New World is looking very bright. It looks like this week or next week, whatever you want to call it, we'll actually get the roadmap, and that will really tell us what we can expect and when. Will it have raids on it in 2023, or is that actually going to come in 2024? We'll find out soon, I hope. If you want to follow that as soon as that news drops, be sure to subscribe to this channel. Let me know your thoughts. Do you think the future of New World is bright, or are you a bit of a doomer? Do let me know in the comments below. Again, another big shout out to my YouTube members. I do truly appreciate you guys. I can't understate how much it's actually worth in comparison to like YouTube adverts. This is just like a much more stable funding solution, and if I ever wanted to grow and get bigger and stuff like that, it's going to be you guys who get me there. What you should definitely do is have a most beautiful day, like and subscribe. Goodbye.